I give props to Dave because, he gets me a beer, and I was standing there, and there's people from L.A. who were celebrating their honeymoon, the deputy sheriff and his wife, and Dave's talking to him and saying, hey, what are y'all doing here, and blah, blah, blah. He's being real friendly. And then he says, I got to go to the bathroom, and he hands me his guitar. And so I'm listening to these guys and holding this guitar like a prop,
He wouldn't play for us.
He says, you're next. Now, here's the thing. It was starting to rain, and I had to get back to the studio. So.
Oh, it's starting to rain.
Yeah. Can't get wet.
No.
No, I'm melting.
Hey, this is Martin Martinick from Accept, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
Couple guests here today. One, an old buddy of mine, and I use the word old lovingly.
Thank you.
Steve Creech, who is a record producer, all-around nice guy, a Beatles aficionado.
Wow.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, we've had a couple of conversations about that once or twice.
Yeah, it's cool.
And the holder of a very nice Hofner bass guitar.
Wow.
Yeah. I've been a fan since I was a kid, so still am.
Yeah. And then sitting across from me, Dave Lenahan, who actually met at, was it McNamara's?
It's McNamara's, yeah.
McNamara's Irish Pub.
Over at Guinness.
with Mark Allen Burnett, who's a mutual acquaintance of ours.
Brother from another mother.
Yeah. Found out that you're also a podcaster, along with being a singer and songwriter.
Yes,
so, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Bob.
Appreciate it very much, Bob.
We're going to start with you, Dave, because this is all about you, and Steve's along for the ride, and interjection here and there.
Thank you, Steve, for giving me strength, lessening my nerves.
Is it working?
It's working.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got started in the music business when? How old were you when you realized that this is what you were going to do?
Gosh, I was really young, doing the old Presley in front of the mirror, with a Ovation guitar back in the 70s. But I knew I wasn't as gifted on guitar as my brother was. My younger brother, believe it or not, was an amazing guitar player. And I used to hear a song on the radio I'd like, and he could figure it out. And I'd say, show me how to play that. So I thought the second best thing to do, if you can't be the rock star you want to be, was to be the guy on the radio playing the music. Because I always used to turn my friends on to the new music and stuff, So I chose the radio route when I was in college, and I worked in radio off and on for some years.
Yeah, that's
I'm your new old friend.
You were the voice.
I was a voice for a while, yeah. Mm-hmm.
How was that?
I loved it. I wouldn't change a thing. I loved those years. It was just fantastic.
Where were you at?
I started, my first job really was in college radio. My first paying job was doing jazz, an NPR affiliate, WKSU, which at the time was on the campus of Kent State University. Since then, they just own the NPR market all around Northeast Ohio. But back in the day, I did afternoon drive jazz, and I learned to love jazz, and that was my first real foray into it. And from there, I did adult contemporary just outside of Youngstown. Moved back to the west side of Cleveland, where I did country music for the first time, and I stayed in country. I was lucky to be in it, during the 90s, the Garth Brooks era and the great 90s era of country music on the #1 station in Cincinnati, which was WUBE, B105.
You talk about imitating Elvis in the mirror, but what were your musical influences?
Well, I'll tell you what. There was a guy in Cleveland, Ohio that I absolutely admired, and his name was Michael Stanley.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to interject here.
Okay.
You know, I was just up in Cleveland a few weeks ago for the Rock Gods Hall of Fame Awards.
My nephew works at the Rock Hall of Fame. So,
and
yeah.
Michael Stanley was one of the recipients in memoriam
That's great.
for being a rock god.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
I
got to find all about him.
Yeah, I loved Michael Stanley. I had vinyl, and I didn't know who it was. I figured he was a Midwest guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Cleveland. Yeah. His dad was a DJ in Cleveland, and I think San Diego, I want to say. And he kind of followed in Dad's footsteps eventually. Ended up on WNCX in Cleveland for a long time playing classical rock.
But of course, Cleveland has quite a bit of musical history that a lot of people don't know. Of course, you had Boku, the pop rock group in the 80s, and you had Eric Carmen.
Oh, Eric Carmen,
and of course,
the
you
Raspberries.
mentioned Michael Stanley
Yep.
and the Raspberries.
Yep.
And Cleveland's quite, in addition to having the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's still quite the music town.
Pretty big in the punk rock scene, too, when that started, too. You had bands, like the Pretenders came out of Akron, and Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails, things like that. So Black Keys, it's a great history of music from Cleveland, and great clubs like the Agora, Blossom Music Center. There was always great shows going on at
Hank
scene.
LeConte, who had the Agora Ballroom.
Yeah.
One of the nicest guys ever. I played there 88 and I think 89 once with a heavy metal band called Anvil.
Okay.
We played the Agora Ballroom, which really kind of fit that facility
Was
quite
the music
well.
heavy?
Oh, brother, you have no idea. That's stories for another time.
With Anvil, they got to be heavy, right?
Yeah. And then I think we were there once with Billy Preston. I think we played the Agora Ballroom. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, but what a great place.
Yeah, it was a great place.
Yeah,
They
not in
broke
a
lot
good
of acts.
Not in a good part of town, but definitely a nice venue.
Was it down in the flats or?
No, it was on the east side of town.
Oh,
yeah.
And I remember there was a guy named Bruce Springsteen just breaking it in.
never heard of him.
And he did like 2 nights there at the Agora, sold it out, and they recorded that on WMMS in Cleveland. And that is a famous bootleg record if you could ever find
I
it.
bet.
A great show. Yeah. So,
Well, we talk about Michael Stanley. Who else influenced you?
of course, I loved the Beatles, growing up on the Beatles, things like that. And there's just so many others. And then I got into country music and discovered what a great genre that was, and playing everybody from George Jones and Alabama, all through the 80s and 90s, Garth Brooks and all those guys. So, it's just so many to mention,
When we talk about your songwriting, what swayed you in that direction?
It's crazy. Thinking about that a little bit, like I was telling you about my brother, right? And he could hear a song and learn how to play it on the radio. And I was always different. When we got our guitars, I was always trying to pick out new progressions and finding new melodies and things like that. And I remember playing one for my brother going, hear this, I play in this. And then I'm kind of, he goes, you didn't write that. I go, yeah, I did. I just made that up. And so I always wanted to find the new melodies. And then for the cover stuff, I'd lean on Russ, and he'd show me how to play them. So I guess even way back then, and I was 11, 12 years old, but I didn't really start taking it seriously. And I would always write a little bit, but not really seriously until I was working for a station in Cincinnati, and I got invited by the local NSAI chapter, which is Nashville Songwriters Association International. And they asked me and the program director to come and talk about how songs make the charts and, things like that. And so we did. And I went into this room, and there were 60 people, all with a love of songwriting. And I got to know these folks. I said, you mean you teach the craft of songwriting here? Oh, yeah, we're real serious about it. So I'm like, sign me up. And within a few years, I became one of the coordinators in Cincinnati and just started writing every chance I got. And then coming down to Nashville to write a lot. And eventually we just ended up moving here, So, yeah.
That's one of the things I obviously want to talk about as we get a little farther into this conversation is the anatomy of songwriting. Because it seems to come naturally for some people, but it is a process, isn't it?
It really is. The word craft, I keep hearing, it's craft. And like any craft, you can learn it. On my podcast, I had a gentleman, Pete Salas, who equated it to building a house. you have the structure, you build the foundation, then you put up the studs, and you just build and add to it, right? And I thought, well, that's brilliant. Mm-hmm. And another one, Bill O'Hanlon, recently said it's like alchemy. We try to pull things out of the air and turning them into gold. And I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, there are rules, and I think it's important to learn the rules, the structure of songs. And once you got that down, you can break the rules, if it fits your style. And I keep preaching, find your style, your voice. And if it's right to you, it may ring right with other folks, So if that makes sense, but learn the rules, there's rules.
And I think that's really the basic structure. Like you said, it's constructing a house. Mm-hmm. You still have to start with a cornerstone. You still have to start with a foundation before you can go any further.
An idea.
Yeah.
An idea.
And it has to be a good idea, or at least a decent idea.
And now when I say idea, it could be, you mentioned a song we played at Bobby's Idol Hour the other day.
Oh, yeah.
So I met Jan Buckingham, who's a hit writer. I'm at her house with a friend named J4, and we had just finished up a song. Jan went to print it off on her printer, left the room. J4 opens up his phone. He sees this funny meme. He goes, Dave, look at this. And we start laughing. It was, I found your wife on Tinder. Jan comes back to the room and goes, we're going to write another song here today. So it started with the idea, found your wife on Tinder. But an idea could also be a melody, a riff, something that you found, in what you're doing. And sometimes I go into I got this melody, guy. What's this saying to you?
Well, now, Dave, have you seen that dating app for lumberjacks? It's called Timber. It could happen.
It could happen.
Yes, it could.
I'm a lumberjack. I'm okay. Anyway.
He's okay.
Squirrel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've got them for farmers. Why not? Why not lumberjacks?
I didn't know that.
Why not?
I'm going to join the farmers now.
Don't ask me what it is because I have no idea.
Me neither.
Yeah.
The concept of writing a song, though, and obviously it comes easier for some than it does for others. But at the same time, writing a song by yourself, creating that craft, creating that moment, is it typically easier when you're on your own, or the collaboration with other songwriters?
I think it's harder, actually. I think co-writing, and here in Nashville, we do the co-writing system. You get 3, 4, sometimes more than that people in the room putting their heads together on an idea. You can come up with some pretty neat things.
But can there be too many people in the room? And I preface that by saying that I was friends with a guy named Robert Palmer, not the Robert Palmer, but another Robert Palmer.
Yeah.
Who wound up being a producer for the Cheetah Girls. And he said they had 26 co-writers on one song.
Some of these pop songs today have a lot of different writers. Yeah, I think there could be too many cooks in the kitchen at times, I do. For me, 3 is perfect. And the reason why I like 3 is because, 2 of us could be I may be really hung up on a concept or a line that I think really works in this song. And Steve, you may not be. And let's say you're the third writer. Well, you're going to break the tie, right?
Well, we're in trouble if I'm the third writer.
You get somebody that breaks the tie.
He's modest, this guy. Right? He's modest.
So I like 3-way.
I remember a story that John Randall told once, a famous songwriter here in Nashville, who wrote Whiskey Lullaby.
Oh, great song.
He co-wrote it with Bill Anderson, the Whisperin' Bill.
Whisperin' Bill.
They had 6 hits in 6 decades straight. There's maybe 7 now. I don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah, when you get to be that age, you just stop counting.
Stop counting.
Yeah, I know I have.
Yeah.
He talked about how he and Bill were writing this song, Whiskey Lullaby. And at one point, I think they had finished the first verse and the chorus, and John looked at Bill Anderson, and I think they had killed somebody off. I don't remember if it was him or her.
Both.
Yeah. And he said, John said to Bill, well, what do we do now? And he says, now we'll kill the other person off.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Nobody makes it out alive.
You know what? You talk about that song, though, and that has one of the greatest opening lines of any song ever written. That opening line just drew you right in. She put him out like the burning end of a midnight cigarette. I mean, doesn't that make you want to hear the rest?
It's so visual.
It is. She put him out.
Yeah.
The burning end of a midnight cigarette.
And I think sometimes we forget that when we listen to songs, and Steve, you probably envision this in the studio, you have to think beyond the auditory aspect of it and have to start thinking about a visual. I mean, obviously, music videos, conceptual music videos will do that, but to just be able to close your eyes, like you said, just be able to see the burning end of that midnight cigarette. Mm-hmm. That's what triggers emotions.
Yeah, really does. Furniture, imagery, You can tell me what's going on, but if you show me, it's much more powerful. Mm-hmm. So
we're going to take a break, get a word in for a couple of our sponsors that we truly love having on the show. And when we come back, we're going to have some more conversation with Dave Lenahan, who brought his guitar, by the way, so we're going to get a song or two out of him, and Steve Creech.
You're listening to the business side of music.
This is Mark Allen Barnett, singer, songwriter, creative coach, and mentor. Are you an artist or songwriter, or a family member or friend of someone who is? Are you trying to find your way through the often confusing world of today's music business? I'm here to help. Over the past 40 years, I've written and recorded hit songs, have had more than my share of live performances, and have seen the ups and downs of the music industry and what Music City, also known as Nashville, has to offer. I'm here to share that information with you. The Mark Allen Barnett Songwriting Tours of Nashville are a one-day to multi-day private interactive workshops developed to help you discover your best approach to songwriting, performing in front of a live audience, along with the correct way to network within the music industry. Our workshops are based around what you need to know. While in Nashville, you get an insight from behind the scenes, learn about the history of Music City, separate fact from fiction, and give yourself or a loved one the time of your life. This workshop makes the perfect gift for someone you love who wants to get their foot in the door of the music business the right way. For more information, go to www.markallenbarnett.com or www.musicchoosesyou.com. Remember, you don't choose music. Music chooses you.
As a musician, you have a dream, that vision of what success looks like for you. Though it's not only about the money, money is a part of it. Whether you've been extremely successful or just striving to maintain a regular cash flow, you need a plan. Money Concepts can help you develop a customized plan to achieve the financial stability and success you want. For over 40 years, Money Concepts has been providing holistic financial planning services to individuals, families, and business owners. As an independent firm, Money Concepts and their associates are committed to always represent the best interest of the client. It's really about independence coupled with committed benevolent interest, which means that they can represent your client, not a product supplier. It's not about selling products. It's about helping you achieve success. To learn how this can benefit you, contact John Adams at 737-867-9309. That's 737-867-9309 for more information.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio here in Nashville, Tennessee, the business side of music. Steve Creech.
Yes, sir.
Dear old friend and
thank you. Yeah.
Partner in crime when it comes to the music business sometimes.
Yeah, I've been arrested. No, I'm just kidding. Not
you just have an arresting development.
I've been arresting for this whole podcast.
Yeah, you have been arresting for this whole podcast.
Guy's funny.
Yeah, he's got some comical humor about him. We'll keep him around. Yeah, or at least do a podcast.
Yeah.
And sitting across the table is Dave Lenahan, who has a show called Songwriter
Connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'd think I'd remember these things, but right. I'm old and feeble-minded. So getting back to the anatomy of the song and structuring it.
Yeah.
Is it like a 1-3-5 chord progression? And this is, how do you write the lyrics from that? Is it, I know kabuki's not the right word, but it's that Japanese poem formula.
Haiku, whatever.
Yeah, haiku, yeah. That's what I was looking for is haiku. It's maybe not that difficult, but at the same time, maybe it is a little more structure or lack thereof.
Absolutely. You talked about numbers. So there's the Nashville number system. We usually talk about 1, 4, 5, 6 minor. And they say 3 chords in the truth. Well, 1, 4, 5. There's your 3 chords.
Yeah.
And you want to change it up a little bit. You put a 6 minor in it. So what is that? If you're not musical, let's say you're in the key of D. Okay. All right. Let's do G. I've got to cape it up. So there's G, 4 chord. Your 5 chord would be the D. Okay. And then if you want to look for the minor, E would be the minor. So those 4 chords right there in any key. 1, 4, 5, 6 minor. Now there's all kinds of tricks. There's the money chord. So a chord that you think wouldn't necessarily fit in there, but somehow it does. Flat 7, there's a 2 minor, a 3 minor, things like that. If you don't know the Nashville number system, look it up. It's brilliant. It's the reason that these studio musicians in town can sit down, hearing the song one time, looking at a chart full of numbers, can sit down there and play it like they've been playing it
in
all
whatever
their
key
lives.
it needs to be in.
Whatever key.
Yeah.
So when you go by the number system, you just go, what key are you in? I'm in A. Okay, so we know A is number 1.
Who created that? Who created the Nashville numbering system?
I have no idea.
Some guy good with numbers, obviously.
Well, I had... There's a guy that takes credit for it, and he's got a book and all that. I can't remember his name, but my understanding is it goes back to early jazz days on the East Coast.
Oh, really?
That the jazzers would call them out because, those Roman numerals you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah. Interesting.
We'll have to look into that.
Well,
just to prove that theory.
We need to Google that.
Yeah. And those jazz guys, they're all crazy anyway.
Anyway, yes.
Because I are one, so.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm a huge jazz buff. Even as a kid growing up, and of course, I listened to Hendrix and Grand Funk Railroad and all of those great bands. But I was listening to John Coltrane and Monk and just a modern jazz quartet. And and my dad would look at me and go, "What's wrong with you?" I get why you listen to the music of your youth, but what's this other music? And
something else.
Just to know how those musicians put it together. And I think that's what drew me to the music business was that almost that free form expression. Now with songwriting, once again, we get back to it's a little more structured. You can't, first of all, there's only so many notes.
That's right.
And there's only so many chords.
Right.
It's how you put them together.
Exactly right. I think, and going beyond the progressions, okay, I think what's really important today is you got to have a really big chorus, a singable chorus, people that'll remember, and maybe the next time around they're singing it along with you.
Would that be the hook?
And the hook. That would be and usually you deliver that hook in that chorus. Ideally, the last thing in that chorus, It's like telling a good joke. You laugh at a joke because you don't expect that ending, right?
Oh.
And they pull the rug out from under you. And I think the great songs will really do that to you.
Okay, how about this joke then? Okay. Oh, man, it's a real sad story. I got to tell you all about my pet mouse. His name is Elvis. He's caught in a trap. He can't get out. No, I know what you mean. It's the punchline.
Yep. I hear you. Yeah. So, if you look at some great songs like The House That Built Me, did you expect her to say, I just want to see the house that built me? I wanted to see the house I grew up in. Right?
He stopped loving her today.
He stopped loving her today.
Oh, my gosh.
Great example.
That song still gets to me.
I played that on the radio, and that was Song of the Year 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I remember when the song came out, and we played it and all that stuff. Maybe about the 4th time I heard that song, really, because you're doing other things when you're on the radio. You're preparing the next event. And the first time that it hit me that the way he stopped loving her was that he died, I went, oh, my God. Why didn't I see that before? They placed a wreath on his door, and they're going to carry him away. It was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Great song.
It wasn't the answer you expected.
No.
And you're right. It literally took the rug out from underneath your feet.
It did. Yes.
A few years ago, I mastered a track that was recorded at the Troubadour. The first country concert I ever went to was at a shed, a venue in Indiana, in Noblesville, Indiana. It was on the north side. At the time, it was called Deer Creek, and it was Clint Black and Tanya Tucker.
Wow.
And the girl I was dating, she was a country girl fan, or country fan girl, or whatever. And so she says, you got to take me to this show. Now, fast forward a couple of years ago, I get this track, and it's called Bring My Flowers Now. You know that one?
Oh, yeah.
And
Grammy Award winning.
Yeah. And so I mastered this track, and I was sitting, I was going through a weird time in my life, but I was sitting at home with the dog, and we turned the Grammys on, and there she is doing this song.
Yeah.
And when you're in the technical world, the way my mind works, when I was doing that, I was thinking this resonance and that squeak and this left-right correlation, et cetera, about the recording. That's my job.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got a chance to listen to her doing it live, just her and a piano. And she says, yeah, bring my flowers now while I'm living.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bring them later. I can't use them,
Right.
That's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you expect that, when you first heard that song?
Have you written a song with that kind of that unexpectation? Would that be a word?
I can give you an example. My first Nashville cut, it was kind of a rug. And I'll tell you, you talk about structure. So we were playing around in Cincinnati, me and another guy, and it was all over. And I just started playing this riff for some reason. This is how this song started. And he starts singing. He was really good at just grabbing stuff out of the air and singing it, And I was like, his name's Greg Eltamer, and I loved writing with him. He's like another brother from another mother. And he started singing out of nowhere. He started going, baby, I'm gone. Baby, I'm gone. And I'm like, wow. The next day, I was thinking about this. I'm thinking, I think there's a song in that. And I wanted to figure out how we could do that. How can we twist that? And so I called him up and I go, Greg, get your butt over here because we're going to write this song.
Yeah, cool.
He comes over to my house. We sat on my deck in Cincinnati. I said, here's the idea of this song. Guy wants to go, all right? He wants to get gone. But he doesn't really have the strength to do it. So what he's doing, he's sitting in the bar and he's getting gone. So baby, I'm gone means he's drunk on his butt. And my buddy Greg, who I love to this day, he says, yeah, I don't think I'd write it that way. I go, really? Okay, well, I went ahead and wrote it. Put his name on it.
You got to play it for us.
And we got it cut. And a guy named Chancey Williams, I'm really proud of these days, was on his first album. Chancey's doing some cool things. Been on the Opry a few times. And
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So let's hear it.
Okay, well, great. We'll do it. It's got one of those singable choruses. And I love playing this out because people will sing it back. I can fix up my old rusted truck. Just needs a new clutch. Back her down off the rack and fill her up. Man, it wouldn't take much. Make a left out the drive and right down our old county road. And be heading for Texas when I make my mind up to go. Here's the chorus. You just won't know what you got till it's gone. And one day you'll miss me when I get the strength to move on. I can be free from you here. It'll just take a couple more beers. And baby, I'm gone. Baby, I'm gone. That's what they sing back. Baby, I'm gone. Yeah, I can pack a few things.
Yep.
And jump on a Greyhound bus. Baby, I'm gone. They'll sing it back there. There's a bar stool in Dallas where I can forget about us. Baby, I'm gone. And if I left right now, I guess I could be there by dawn. The next line is one that everybody advised me not to put in this song, but I think it makes the song. Okay. It goes, I know liquor is quicker, so I'll line up these shots till I'm gone. And you just won't know what you got till it's gone. Baby, I'm gone. And one day you'll miss me when I get the strength to move on. I can be free from you here. It'll just take a couple more beers. And baby, I'm gone. Baby, I'm gone. Baby, I'm gone. And then there's something called the bridge, and this is it. And if you come a looking for me, I don't think you'll like what you see. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Baby, I'm gone. And one day you'll miss me when I get the strength to move on. I can be free from you here. It'll just take a couple more beers. Baby, I'm gone. Baby, I'm gone. Baby, I'm gone. Baby, I'm gone. Baby, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Wow.
You know, I'll tell you another cool thing about this. I was talking about my brother Russ, who passed away about 10 years ago. He had cancer, and cancer sucks. We all know about it. But here's the kind of ear he had. I was playing that song, and he goes, Dave, you're not playing the 7 chords. And I go, where? He goes, you don't hear those 7 chords? I go, no. And so he's the one that went... Color chords,
Color
beautiful.
chords.
So I learned, and now I like to put the 7 chords in. I heard it once say that Lennon used to say, "I seventh that stuff up." A lot of 7
well,
chords.
most of their early stuff was dominant 7. So
Yeah.
like what you were playing, A minor 7, then
A
D
minor 7 to
sus, of course,
D7. Yeah.
What a great line. I love that.
Yeah.
And of course, Lennon and McCartney, you know, who was the better writer of the two? I think they influenced each other so much.
Yeah.
But when you talk about those hit songwriters together, and of course, you know, Carole King had a counterpart with her husband.
Oh yeah.
And of course,
Coffin.
You know, you had Lennon and McCartney, you had Simon and Garfunkel, you know, on and on and on.
Some great teams.
Lenahan and Bender,
Bender.
which is a law firm, isn't it?
Yeah, I take
That sounds like a law firm.
I take no responsibility or acknowledgement for that, but thank you.
But, you know, I'd like to give a shout out to Dave personally from this table because I've been in a rut. Bob, you know what I'm talking about. And I just started writing tunes again.
Good.
And so I was telling him right before you got here, Dave, I was working on a song in the studio. I've got this new studio, and, you know, I'm trying to get it kitted out or whatever. And I wrote a song called Butterflies.
All right.
But you were talking about the impetus for a line and all these classic lines.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day, I was talking to somebody, and I said, "Don't break my heart. I don't cry pretty."
Ooh.
And it's sad to see a grown man cry. And I thought, ding. And so I wrote a tune called "Sad to See a Grown Man Cry," which I'd like to play for you sometime.
I would love
just
to
to
hear
get your opinion of it. You're such a good writer, but you know, sometimes that's all it takes, isn't it? It's just a line.
It is just a line.
Sometimes a line. Yeah.
Yeah. It goes beyond 3 chords and the truth, although I think that still carries so much impact in this town especially. But
absolutely,
sometimes it just takes that one line. And when you find it, it is lightning in a bottle.
It really is.
Well, you know, those color chords you were talking about, little shades of gray, you know, your brother was kind of obviously an influence on that.
Big influence.
That's something I've been taking for granted for years. It's not just the jazz thing where you hear little dissonances and consonants and things that are sort of quote unquote in tune, little rubs here and there, and keeps the interest going musically. My brother and I, when we were latchkey kids, and you brought this into my mind from your brother, we'd come home and we had a Philco turntable and had an alligator clip underneath it that you had to move the wire over and you could play just the left channel. And, and then we'd listen to a song off the White Album, for instance. And then we'd say, okay, now remember that, Jeff, because we were just like little kids. And so I developed my ear, right? And then we'd move the little clip over to let's listen to the right speaker or the left speaker or whatever. And so I remember the song, Everybody's Got Something to Hide But Me and My Monkey. And now I know how it was recorded and all the technology and what consoles they use, the mics and things. But yeah, but we had this thing where they go bum 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 da bum, and the guitar would be on the left side, and then the cowbell or fire bell would come in. Come on, dinga dinga ding ding. And so my brother and I, we did a little concert for my mother, who was a hairdresser. I said, let's do that song, but we don't know how to play anything. And I said, oh no, you do. You go bum 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 boom boom like that, and I go come on, dinga dinga ding ding. And we did this little beatboxing, 2 little goofy kids. And we did that song. And those phonetic things have really helped me in producing records, because you listen to the vocal inflection of the person that's talking, and they will make some weird guttural sound that they don't mean to do. And you go, okay, it's melody, voice melody. And I would hear that, and I would say, what are you playing? And they'd play, I'm playing a G chord, and it's got these 3 notes in it. And I said, but you're singing an E, that's the 6th. So it's kind of like, that's what happened with She Loves You. It's like, yeah, 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 yeah. And that's this G6 chord.
Yeah.
Those things, I have to admit that when I first got into listening to country, I didn't hear any color chords. It was primary colors, you know. But when I started listening to Garth, and I was started mastering.
Limit All in My Roots, that 2nd chord.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It's an
hard song to play. Hard
little
chord to play.
diminished chord, yeah.
Yeah.
It's A, and then you hear that B flat in the next chord on 1, and all my roots go up in boots. You know, you go, yeah, okay. But Garth had a pop mentality, and he brought some of that, and it's still there.
And
you
rock
know,
and
so
roll
you hear
mentality.
it in, you know, your Tim McGraw's and all those people, Blake's and some Luke Bryan and things like that. So it stayed.
And today it's getting more pop, I think, oriented more toward the pop radio side. You know,
Which I don't know if is good or bad.
I don't either.
Honestly. And I'm a traditionalist, you know. And I think when we talk about jazz, I'm that same way with country music and rock music.
Yeah.
I love the old school more than what's out there today. And I'll listen to it. I'll listen to the new music.
Yeah.
But it hasn't impressed me.
Me too. And when
there are some good ones. I
asked Dave, I said, hey,
Combs.
I said, Dave, you know, who do you like to listen to? And he says, I listen to WMOT.
All the time.
Which is a Americana, right?
Right.
So do you consider yourself an Americana artist?
I guess. I've been, and I preach this on my podcast all the time, I'm anti-genre. You know, I think the most unfair question you could ask a musician is, what kind of music do you play? And I hate that. And my pat answer is, well, hopefully good music. You know, I don't want to, I keep telling folks, be your own genre. You know, there wasn't a Garth Brooks before Garth Brooks. There wasn't. He found his voice and his thing. There wasn't a Taylor Swift or a Dolly Parton for that matter before those. And they've created their own genre, you know, really. And find your own voice, find your own thing. I love the artists that create their, you know, I met an artist at the GSC mixer last week, which is Global Songwriter Connection. She calls her music Amerikinda. Amerikinda. I have another friend who's her genre is sunshine story pop. There's another great folk artist I love, Jamie Harris, who's been on my podcast a couple times. Jamie is folk and roll. Now, see, that's the kind of, that makes me want to listen to her. And she's got an incredible voice. And
I think when we talk about Americana music, you know, we have the big Americana Fest here every year.
Every year, yeah.
And, you know, and it's attended by 15,000, 20,000 people who are huge non-genre specific fans. Did I say that right? Non-genre specific. And the just the caliber of performers that come and play at this festival every year, to me, is mind-blowing.
It is, too.
And you always hear something new.
Bob, I used to work at Ryman Auditorium, and one of my favorite days to work was when they're doing sound check for the Americana show. And you'd see everybody from John Prine, Tyler Childers, all these great artists just doing their sound check. Roseanne Cash, you know, and you go, wow, you know, I know I'm supposed to be working, but I'm watching this.
No, you know, him and I, right before we started the podcast with you, Dave, we're talking about Billy Preston. And Bob, I love Billy Preston, and Bob has a history with him, working with him.
Yeah.
And we were talking about sound checks and getting to know Billy. And, you know, there's somebody that I didn't realize until many years later that influenced me. You know, it was part of my musical DNA. Yeah. So that's a golden time.
It is. It is.
You know, it's so funny. I was walking down, I was at 4th Street there, isn't it? Right in front of the Ryman.
Mm-hmm. It's 4th, yeah.
And I was with Jody, and I had met this guy who was telling me, it was a Christmas time show. The guy from the Stray Cats, which is, where am I going with this?
I lost his name all of a sudden.
The guitar player.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank for some
Brian Setzer.
Thank you.
Brian Setzer. There we go.
Yeah, love him.
This is why you guys keep me around.
That's right. But anyway, I had scored these tickets and was going to go see Brian Setzer. And
cool.
So we're walking along, and it's getting dark, and she says to me, "Oh, wow, Steve, everybody's out. And look over there, that beautiful church." She's not a country person, right? And I go, yeah. She says, look how well maintained it is. It's so clean. And there must be a service going on there. There must be something really important happening tonight because people are going in there at nighttime. And I said, oh, yeah. And she says, this is so sweet. She says, can we go in there? And I said, well, I don't know. Yeah. So we go in there and we walk around to the backstage area, and there's Todd. And he says, hey, Creechy, he says, I was hoping you'd make it to the show, and she was so confused. So he introduced me to an usher there, and we had seats right down front. But I decided to play this little game, and I bet you've done this with your wife, Bob, where I said, well, let me look at the tickets. Oh, yeah, we're way up here. So we go up in the balcony. We're sitting in the very last row, and we show the tickets to a different usher, and he says, no, y'all ain't supposed to be here. So he takes us back down to the floor. She says, why did you do that? It's just a mess with you. But it was my first time really listening to a show in the Ryman, and just really loved the acoustics.
Amazing acoustics. Yeah, absolutely.
Gotta say.
I loved working there. I really did. And the history there in the Mother Church. It was
a
tabernacle at one time,
We're going to take another break, get another word in for a couple more of our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to have some more conversation with Dave Lenahan and Steve Creech.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Branding. What is it really? It goes by many names. Marketing, licensing, and image. When in reality, it's 7 key branding formulas that all need to harmonize perfectly. Mess up just one formula and you have compromised the whole brand build. Dead Horse Branding facilitates all 7 formulas under one roof, building, promoting, and marketing all brands at all different stages of their level. We are a marketing team's dream, and we were built to service talent, artist managers, record labels, independent artists, iconic brands, legacy estates, and startups. Rooted in music and seated across other industries like fashion, various talent, hospitality, authors, interior designers, lifestyle brands, and corporate entities. The 7 branding formulas do not discriminate. 7 branding formulas, all in one swift movement. Sick of beating that dead horse? Come to Dead Horse. Please visit us at deadhorsebranding.com or send us an email to info@deadhorsebranding.com.
When you have a Korg synth at your fingertips, the possibilities are endless. Be it digital, analog modeling, altered FM, wave sequencing, or the multi-engine synth, Korg gives you easy access to a variety of features to help you get the perfect sounds quickly. Whether you're a professional musician or just starting out, Korg truly has a synthesizer to help you express yourself. Visit Korg.com or your favorite Korg dealer to get your hands on one of their products to create new music always. Korg, the official sponsor of the business side of music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio here in Nashville, Tennessee, Dave Lenahan and Steve Creech are gracing us with their presence today in the studio. One of the questions that popped into my brain while we were talking on the previous segment was music theory. You get, these kids that go to Belmont or different Berkeley School of Music
absolutely.
Or wherever they go. And they get theory. They get theoried to no end. I guess that's a good way to put it. Does that sometimes get in the way of the creative process? I know that really like classical musicians, and I think some real hardcore jazz musicians, the music theory makes sense. But when you're creating something that, you said in the beginning is a craft, how positive or negative is that whole music theory educational aspect in your mind?
That is such a great question, and I know just enough theory to make me dangerous. But I have 2 friends. That makes
3 of us, I think.
I have 2 friends that I lean on. J4 is a graduate of Belmont, and my friend Michelle Canning, also graduate of Belmont. They know theory in and out, but they're great songwriters. Great songwriters. It doesn't seem to hinder them at all. But I think there's something to be said for people that don't know the theory. They just say, you go, why did you play that chord there? It isn't in that key. That doesn't seem like that would go, but yet it works. How did you make that work? Well, I don't know. I just heard it, So I see both sides of that.
Do you think it sometimes gets in the way, though?
I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I think it's possible that you'd go, well, we need a money chord and
Let me get my book out and find the money chords. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a good question.
When we talk about books, you brought one today.
I did.
And let's go down that path for a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah. This was just written by Bill O'Hanlon, Nancy Dick, and Leslie Bowe. I'm interviewing them Friday on my podcast for a May release. It's called The Songwriter's Guide to Protecting Your Songs and Collecting Your Money. So every songwriter should have this book. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to collect your money today that I didn't even know about. These are your babies. What are they? Are they bringing in? Are they bringing in some money for you? They should be.
Well, and I think if we're focusing on streaming only, we're focusing on the wrong things when we talk about creating a revenue stream.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you something about that. Representative Rashida Tlaib just put into Congress this bill called the Living Wage for Musicians Act. Oh. And in her speech to Congress, she says, we want to raise it to a penny per stream. And you think, well, that doesn't sound like a whole lot. Don't they get at least a penny every time somebody plays your song? No, it's a fraction. It's about, last time I looked, it was 0.0048%. Now, if you got a co-writer, you're splitting that in two. If you get two co-writers, you're splitting it in three, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very little money per. Now, what she said, if you were a living musician and you wanted to just make minimum wage, $15 an hour, you'd have to have 800,000 streams per month to reach that. Yeah. So there's something really wrong with our model today. And this being the business side of music, you got to go, what's going on? Yeah. What is happening? But there are other ways. Like, for instance, my PRO is BMI. So you should have a publishing rights organization that can help collect the money. And they're not the only way either, but I like them because they have something called BMI Live. Every time I play a show, I'll play 3-4 shows a week. I registered what songs I played. And they pay me, even if it's less than 250 people in that audience, they pay me more for playing that song than I would ever get on a stream of that song.
Oh, wow. I think that's something that's so overlooked too.
It is, Bobby. It really is. And let me tell you, where the majority of the royalties are coming today?
Where's that?
This won't surprise you. From the radio industry. It's amazing what radio stations pay to the PROs, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, just for the right to play that music. Now, it's good for a songwriter, but unless you get a song on the radio, you're not going to make big money, and that's why they go after it. But let me tell you the true facts. Here are the facts. Terrestrial radio listenership has been going down for quite some time. It used to be everybody listened to radio at least sometime during the week. It's fewer than 80% now, even turn on a radio. Now, they'll listen on the internet. They'll find music on TikTok and Spotify and on YouTube. They're not listening to terrestrial radio as much, but they're paying the majority of the royalties. And something's wrong with that. Now, I look at my friends Doug and Lori had two little stations up in Cleveland. They were one of the few mom and pop stations still around. What they were paying per month for royalties was absolutely ridiculous, and it cut into their bottom line. I mean, it was hard to break the nut, for them. Mm-hmm. And when there were more people listening to those songs on the Spotifys and the Pandoras, something is really wrong in this industry. It's going to take a lot smarter minds than mine to figure it out. Maybe it starts with 1 penny per stream. I don't know. But it just seems unfair to me.
Well, something's got to change in the business model because it's not sustainable. It really isn't. And we've been unsustainable for years now. Mm-hmm. Granted, Sirius XM, which is what I listen to a lot of.
I do too.
Probably has a little bit of a payment plan, so to speak, than streaming services. I will use Spotify to find new music, and then I will go out and seek the new music.
So you'll buy it?
I'll buy it.
Okay.
Yeah. And, now, and I talked about this on our previous episode, used music stores, previously owned music stores. McKay's here in Nashville is one example.
Love that place.
Love it, but I don't think the money's making it to the songwriters when you buy that previously played
Probably
copy.
Not. No.
But anytime you can find an artist that's out there at their merchandise table hawking their wares, and the new thing now is vinyl. They're selling vinyl for $20-25,
$30 sometimes.
Yeah. and CDs, and that's how you support a lot of these independent artists who aren't making it on radio.
That's right. That's how you do it. Absolutely right. Merch today is the big thing. Your merch table.
Well, and I think the other thing we've talked about on the show in the past is that singer-songwriter or that performer is now selling beer. That's what they're doing. They're selling, putting butts in a seat for somebody, the venue operator or the promoter. They're selling the concession stands. Yep. That's what they're doing. Right. So when you overlook the merchandise aspect of it, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And I think that's one of the solutions. I don't think it's the long-term solution, but I think it's one of the solutions.
I have feelings about it. I mean, for years, I was an entertainer. I traveled around and toured and played in multiple cover bands and learned a lot about song construction, obviously, from learning these songs. And in most cases, I had the best ear of the band, so I'd be the music director. And I can remember we were playing it was in West Virginia, and we were opening up for Kool and the Gang.
Cool.
Which had nothing to do with the kind of music we were doing, but we had some original songs anyway. And we were supposed to go to New York and do a record. Well, that never happened. I won't bore you with that. But I can remember saying to the guys, there was a wedge between me and the rest of the guys because I was the primary writer and the publisher liked my stuff at the time. And so I went out to the board, and we had done our sound check, whatever. And I saw, there's Ron and there's Bo, and there's their vocal channels marked. And I said, "Who's Doc?" And the guy says, "Well, that's you, isn't it? Aren't you Doc?" And I go, I said, "No," I said MD on it. And I said, MD. I said, I went to the guitar player. I said, "Who's MD?" He says, "You're the music director." And he was real sarcastic about it. But I'm just saying that I have kind of interesting perspective in a way, because I'm thinking about as an entertainer anyway, I was supposed to be there to sell booze or food or whatever. But the focus wasn't on original music. And I've been hearing and reading and studying. Like I said, I'm coming out of my funk now, and I'm starting to pay attention.
Great.
And I realize that a lot of people under 30 are buying old music. They're going back and they're listening to the stuff that we took for granted, And so I wonder, I'd like to do a little more research on that to see the new, fresh music that we're looking for, on Spotify and Pandora and all these things. I mean, I'm there too, I want to be entertained. I also want to be inspired.
Well, I think that's so much of it. There is still great music being recorded and released.
I agree.
You just have to dig a little harder to find it, because it's not necessarily always making it to radio.
That's true.
At least not in the beginning.
That's true.
We had a band here in Nashville last week that I came across on YouTube, of all things, called Dirty Loops.
Oh, yes.
Three guys out of Europe.
Yeah, I know of them.
And just the most amazing entertainers and performers. Now I have the mindset, I want to go out and find their music in the store, and I want to buy it because I want to listen to it time and time again. And I don't necessarily like the audio quality that you get on Spotify or the other streaming services, because it's compressed to death.
It's so compressed. Yeah, it really is. And if you listen to the vinyl version of it versus what you're hearing, it is so completely different.
Yeah. And we've talked about that on previous episodes.
Yeah, it really is.
Before we exit today's episode, can we get one more song out of you?
You sure can. You want the story behind it too?
Yeah, absolutely. No, just play the song and we'll guess.
I fell down a rabbit hole last summer. I was going for walks. I was getting shots for my allergies, twice a week. So I decided, rather than drive down Central Pike in Hermitage, which is getting busier and busier all the time because all this urban sprawl, I just walk it. So I started walking and doing that and looking forward to that every time. Mm-hmm. And I cut through a field, which is one of the only empty fields left. And in the back of the field, I saw this sign. It said, Absalom Gleaves Cemetery.
This is the cemetery that you found.
Yeah, I like this song.
And I go, where? Is that sign pointing somewhere? Well, Absalom didn't even register with I'd never heard that name before. And I didn't know if it was like a family, two different families, what the heck. But the more I walked by that, the more curious I got, because it was just behind the sign was nothing but woods and honeysuckle up over my head, And one day I remember walking through there and said, well, I'm going to find out more about that. And I took a picture of the sign. And I went back home and I Googled Absalom Gleaves. First thing that came up was Absalom in the Bible. And I found out that Absalom was a bad boy in the Bible, was a son of David. And I thought, why would you want to name your kid Absalom? And I found out that Absalom also meant father of peace, and I'm sure that's what he was named for. And I started reading a little bit about this family, the Cleves family. They were big in this area. Still, what's going on with this cemetery? In October, I walked by, and the leaves are starting to fall. There's a huge oak tree that overtook everything. And I could see this obelisk pointing out from the dogwood. And I went, son of a gun, there was a cemetery back here.
Yeah.
So I dug my way back to it, and there it was, about 12, 14-foot obelisk. Guy's named Absalom Gleaves on it, buried 1834.
Wow.
Oh, wow, this is antebellum. On the other side was his wife, Kate, who died in 1866. So she lived through the Civil War.
Huh?
So I go back, and I find a Gleaves family website, and I reached out to him, and I said, I'm just really intrigued. I feel called to help here. And one of the relatives, one of the descendants, reached out to me, and I talked to him on the phone, a guy named Owen. I love him. He said, I remember mowing that, and I used to take care of it. I just can't anymore. I'm 84 years old. I've had heart surgery and all this. He said, but I'll tell you what, if you wanted to clear it, you have my permission. If anybody gives you any guff, you tell them you have the family's permission. So I started clearing that thing by hand. He says, oh, by the way, there are 2 other graves there. There's this Mary Wolford. She's up against that. If you can make it to that oak tree, she's right underneath it. And then there's someone called Aunt Nancy, and she's there too. Well, the first thing I did was cut down all this, and I was cutting down trees, an inch and a half, all with a saw and pruning shears and all this dogwood. And I made it back to that oak tree, which has got to be about 250, 300 years. We're trying to get it registered right now in Tennessee because it's one of those old witness trees, as they say. And sure enough, Mary Wolford was underneath it. Eventually, we found Aunt Nancy and 34 other graves there.
Holy cow.
Most unmarked, just field stones. Now, since then, we've had the Historical Society out there, and they're going to help us preserve it. The sad fact is somebody bought that land, and they want to put a plaza, and they really want to move this, but we're not going to let that happen. The Gleaves family owned so much property. They were contemporaries of Andrew Jackson. Absalom fought with Andrew Jackson in the War of 1812. In my research, I found. So, and he was a magistrate in here in Davidson County, performed weddings. He kind of acted as a judge. His brother Thomas owned a lot of property around here too. And Thomas married the daughter of James Robertson, who founded Nashville. So the family history is absolutely incredible. So I wanted to write this song as a tribute, and I wanted it to be a folky kind of song. And we're producing it right now. Joe Spivey yesterday came in to put the violin on it. I wanted dobro guitars. I wanted it to be a roots kind of folky song. So if I could play it, it's just called Absalom. Try to give you the short version. Well, I came across old Absalom when the Tennessee sun was high. His name was on this old forgotten cemetery sign. With the woods growing up behind it and all this honeysuckle brush, I could only walk on by it, but I wondered who he was. And one day in late October, as the leaves began to fall, I saw this lone stone obelisk rising up above it all. And I had to go back later with a saw and pruning shears. And I cut my way back to where he lay for 190 years. Oh, Absalom, what you doing in that ground? Oh, Absalom, who is this man I found? And I wonder what took you down. And Stone said he departed life in 1834, and his wife was there beside him. She lived 32 years more. Catherine and Absalom, your story's still untold. And the more I cleared, the more I fell on down that rabbit hole. found old Mary Wolford underneath the old oak tree, and her connection to the family is still a mystery. And I saw Aunt Nancy's epitaph, mother, loving wife and mother dear, and there were 34 more unmarked graves of others buried there. Oh, Absalom, what you doing in that ground? Oh, Absalom, who is this man I found there? Wonder what took you down. You see, his family had this property from Wilson County to the Stones, and what you see that wasn't his brother Thomas owned. He joined Creel's militia, learned how to give him hell, and he fought with Colonel Jackson in the War of 1812. I can't help but ponder about the person that you were, a family man and farmer. At least that's what I heard. Now, I read some old letters to your family and friends, but I wonder if I'll ever know just how your story ends. Oh, Absalom, what you doing in that ground? Oh, Absalom, who is this man I found there? Wonder what took you down. Well, today as I make my way down a busy Central Pike, I see this peaceful, perfect park up on the hill and on the right. And it's crowded and surrounded by so much urban sprawl. But you know, this lone stone obelisk rises up above it all. Absalom, what you doing in that ground? Oh, Absalom, who is this man I found here? Oh, Absalom, what you doing in that ground? Oh, Absalom, who is this man I found? Who is this man I found? Or something like that.
Yeah. Yes. Love it.
Thank you.
Here's a shout out to all of our listeners. Without all of you, we wouldn't be one of the most listened to music industry interview podcasts, including achieving #1 status in many countries around the world, according to Apple Podcasts.
That's awesome.
If you enjoy our show, please check out our Facebook page at the Business Side of Music Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and definitely hit the like button. While you're at it, go to our page on YouTube and click on the Business Side of Music Podcast to subscribe. You can check out our video webcast there and get to see me and our guests such as Dave and Steve here in the studio, along with Buddy the Music Dog, who occasionally makes an entrance into the facility. Last but not least, check out and follow us on Twitter, or I guess we call it X these days. I never seem to get that one right.
Me neither.
At Biz Music Podcast. That's BIZ Music Podcast. Dave, Steve, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Bob.
Let's talk about your podcast one more time. Let's get that plug in.
Songwriter Connection. It's everywhere you find your podcast, including YouTube, although we're not a video podcast yet.
And the book.
In the book, please, Bill O'Hanlon, Nancy Deckett, Leslie Bowe. It is called The Songwriter's Guide to Protecting Your Songs and Collecting Your Money, and it officially goes on sale on the 13th of April. So.
And Steve?
Yes, sir.
We'll get you back in again.
Yeah.
You know, you were one of our very first podcasts ever that we did.
Really?
I think you were like episode 7 or 8 or something along those lines.
I moved. I was telling Dave about I had the studio fire, and I was up in Indiana, and I moved to Hermitage area in Nashville, and I built that studio. And Vinny Rebus had said something about Tom and Tracy, and that you were taking over and all that sort of thing. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. He came to the studio. We sat in the conference room, and
we sat around a kitchen table. You know what that's all about.
Yeah.
We'll do it again.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be great.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.